Dawn arrived like a whisper across Mirror Lake, soft light spilling over glass-smooth water, where mountains leaned in to admire themselves. The world here was perfect in its symmetry, too perfect, as if the air itself held its breath. Ilara Voss stood at the edge of the dock, watching a silver mist curl upward and vanish into sunlight. The hum of insects, the creak of wood beneath her boots, all of it folded into a stillness that felt aware, waiting. A fisherman cast his line, his reflection moving an instant before he did. Somewhere across the lake, a ripple formed and stopped halfway, suspended like a thought unfinished. Ilara frowned. Water didn't behave like that, and in that frozen shimmer just beneath the surface, she thought she saw the faint outline of something vast, something that shifted when the wind did not. By mid-morning, the lake looked ordinary again. Laughter echoed from the boardwalk as tourists posed for photographs, their mirrored doubles smiling back from the water. Jonas Heller leaned on the railing, scanning the surface for the missing swimmer reported at dawn. No splashes, no sound, no body. Just an unbroken reflection of clouds drifting where a life had vanished. Ilara approached, holding her data tablet. "The sonar won't read depth," she said quietly. "It's like it's bouncing off air." Jonas didn't reply. He'd seen calm waters hide horror before. But this calm felt sentient. Beneath the laughter and camera clicks, he could almost hear a heartbeat. Mayor Haldren addressed the gathered crowd with the confidence of someone who couldn't afford to believe in monsters. "The lake is safe," he announced, voice booming across the water. "The diver's search will continue, but there's no cause for panic." Yet as he spoke, Silva stood apart, staring at the still surface. Her grandmother's stories came back. The lake that remembers hunger. She whispered, "It's waking again." Ilara overheard her and felt a chill. Legends didn't fit into her equations, but neither did water that stopped moving mid-wave. The wind picked up, but the reflection stayed perfectly still. That night, floodlights shimmered across the water as search teams scoured the lake. Jonas sat in his boat, watching the beams bend strangely when they touched the surface. He dropped a sonar buoy. The screen flickered, then went black. No data, no depth, no sound return. The water was eating the signal. He leaned over the edge, his reflection clear and sharp. Too sharp. His face looking back with eyes that blinked a moment too late. He recoiled, heartbeat drumming in his ears. Somewhere deep below, a low rumble pulsed, faint but rhythmic, like the slow breath of something vast and alive. Ilara reviewed the sonar data in her cabin. Only static and broken readings. She played it back at low volume, and beneath the noise, she heard something. A deep, resonant tone repeating in intervals, like a calling or an echo. The lights flickered. A tremor ran through the floorboards. Outside, the lake shimmered under moonlight, perfectly still, perfectly wrong. A sudden splash broke the silence. Then, nothing. She rushed to the window. The water was smooth again. Her reflection stared back, unmoving, while behind it, faintly visible in the depthless dark, something enormous shifted, as if the lake itself had just swallowed. By morning, the lake had swallowed two more. A kayaker and a boy who had been skipping stones near the west dock. Panic finally broke the stillness. Police boats circled in tight patterns, engines cutting the silence into nervous fragments. Ilara watched from the shoreline, her stomach hollow. Every sonar pulse returned nothing, just the same blank void beneath. Jonas muttered. "It's like the water eats sound." The mayor demanded explanations. His words drowned beneath the growing wind. The reflections in the lake wavered again. This time not from the breeze, but from something moving far below. The search expanded, sonar buoys forming a perfect circle across the lake's center. Each pulse vanished into silence, leaving an unbroken horizon. Ilara leaned over the console, adjusting frequencies, desperate for a reading. Then, a signal. A faint rhythmic thud, like a heartbeat echoing from miles below. "Jonas, are you hearing this?" she whispered. He nodded slowly. The sound grew louder, closer, until the console lights flared red. Then, nothing. The screen went dark. The buoy field shuddered, one by one disappearing under the surface without a splash. By dusk, the crowd at the pier had grown restless, their fears spilling into shouting matches and hurried departures. Silva tried to warn them, voice trembling. "It's not water you're standing over. It's skin." The mayor ordered her away, but the ground trembled, cutting him off. A single wave rolled outward from the center of the lake, one that didn't fade. It crept toward the dock, slow and deliberate. Jonas grabbed Ilara's arm. "We need to move." But she stayed rooted, mesmerized by what she saw beneath the surface, a vast shape shifting upward, refracting moonlight like the pupil of an eye. Night fell too quickly. The air felt heavy, damp with static. Boats left anchored near the center began to drift inward, ropes tightening, snapping one by one. Ilara ran down the dock with Jonas, floodlights trembling in her hands. "They're being pulled under," she shouted. Jonas dove in without hesitation, cutting through the water toward the nearest boat. He reached it, then vanished mid-stroke. No bubbles, no struggle, no sound, just empty ripples fading into silence. Ilara screamed his name, the echo swallowed before it reached the other side. Hours later, the lake was deserted. Sirens faded in the distance, leaving only the hum of insects and the creak of abandoned boats. Ilara sat on the shoreline, soaked, staring into the water. Jonas was gone. And yet, the reflection showed two figures sitting there. She leaned closer, trembling, her breath fogging the glassy surface. The second reflection, Jonas, turned its head toward her, slowly, intentionally. The water rippled once, like a heartbeat. Then both reflections vanished, leaving only the empty shore and the endless watching silence. Morning broke cold and colorless. The town felt hollowed out, emptied by fear. Ilara stood beside Silva on the pier, watching fog roll like smoke across the water. "He's still out there," she said softly, not sure whether she meant Jonas or what had taken him. Silva nodded. "The lake never keeps what it swallows. It changes it." The words chilled her more than the air. Behind them, the mayor ordered the dock sealed, but Ilara refused to leave. She opened her case, revealing fresh sonar equipment. Stronger, deeper, riskier. This time, she would look the lake in the eye, inside the emergency operations tent. Ilara replayed the night's data. A pulse, deeper than any geological pattern, rhythmic and deliberate, echoed from the abyss. It almost sounded like breathing. She slowed the recording. The pattern repeated every 7 seconds. Her chest tightened. It wasn't random. Silva stepped closer, whispering, "It's listening." At that same moment, one of the monitors flashed. A live sonar feed, showing a vast curved outline beneath the lakebed, larger than the valley itself. Ilara stared in silence, realizing that they were standing above something alive. A deep tremor shuddered through the valley, rattling glass and lifting ripples across puddles. Ilara and Silva ran outside, just in time to see the surface of the lake fracture into slow-moving waves. But not from wind. Each wave rolled outward, as if something beneath had shifted position. "It's moving," Ilara breathed. Jonas' voice echoed in her memory. "The water eats sound." She felt the same silence now, that impossible hush between heartbeats when even the birds forgot to call. She raised her recorder toward the water. The device shook in her hand, recording a low, rhythmic pulse. Jonas returned at dusk, or rather, someone who looked like him. Ilara saw the figure walking out of the fog toward the dock. His movements slow, deliberate. Relief flooded her, until she noticed the water dripping from his clothes, though he left no wet footprints. "Jonas!" she called. He stopped, eyes fixed on her, unblinking. Then the mist shifted, and he was gone, leaving only the echo of footsteps. Alara sank to her knees, trembling. Silva whispered, "It's showing you what you want to see." Somewhere across the lake, a deep ripple spread outward like laughter beneath glass. Night deepened and the fog swallowed the town whole. Alara refused to leave the dock. She replayed the sonar data again, isolating the heartbeat pattern. Beneath the rhythmic pulse, she heard another sound, a voice, distorted, like someone whispering underwater. She leaned closer, adjusting the frequency, and froze. The voice was saying her name. The lights flickered. The dock creaked. She dropped the recorder, staring into the lake. The reflection stared back, lips moving silently. It was her, but older, eyes hollow, whispering from beneath the surface. The rain ended just before dawn, leaving the air thick with silence. Alara stood on the dock beside Silva, watching as the fog lifted in long, translucent strands. Beneath the surface, faint glimmers pulsed like underwater lightning. Rhythmic, alive. "We map it," Alara said quietly, her voice steadier than she felt. Silva hesitated. "You can't map a thing that breathes." But Alara had already begun lowering the submersible drone, its lights disappearing into the mirror like dark. On her monitor, shapes emerged. Vast arches of tissue, pulsating gently, too symmetrical to be natural. "It's not a lake bed," she whispered. "It's a body." The drone's camera descended into darkness. Alara and Silva watched in silence as the feed flickered through layers of silt and shadow. Then, movement. A slow undulation, smooth and deliberate. The water trembled, distorting the view. "That's not rock," Alara murmured. The drone sensors read impossible pressure levels, as though the water itself resisted their intrusion. A low tone filled the cabin, resonant enough to rattle their bones. Silva grabbed her arm. "It knows we're here." The screen flashed white, then cut to black. Outside, the lake rippled once, like something turning over in its sleep. Alara prepared for the dive before dawn. "If I can reach the shelf, I can confirm its structure," she said, though she wasn't convincing herself. Silva protested. "The lake doesn't want to be understood." But Alara was already fastening her gear. As she entered the water, the chill hit like metal. The lake swallowed the sound of her breath instantly. Visibility dropped to nothing. Then, her headlamp caught something smooth, pale, and enormous. It curved upward, vanishing into the dark. She reached out, and it flexed beneath her touch. The sonar signal warped as Alara descended deeper. Pressure reading. Impossible. Her voice crackled over the radio. The bottom's moving. Silva's hands trembled over the receiver. Through the static came a deep, resonant pulse. Not mechanical, not natural. A heartbeat. Then Alara's voice broke through again. "It's hollow inside." A moment later, light burst through the surface. The lake glowing from within, casting the valley in shifting blue. Every window in the town reflected the same image. A vast eye opening beneath the water. Alara surfaced, gasping, pulling herself onto the dock. "It's alive," she said between breaths. Silva knelt beside her, wide-eyed. "No," she whispered. "It's waking." Beneath them, the water quivered like skin touched by wind. The surface bulged, smooth and glistening, forming a slow, circular rise that reflected the sky perfectly, until it blinked. The reflection shattered into 1,000 shards of light. Every sound died. The forest, the wind, the heartbeat, gone. In the silence that followed, the lake inhaled. At sunrise, Mirror Lake no longer reflected. Its surface moved in slow, deliberate spirals, distorting the sky into molten glass. Elara stood on the ridge with Silva, the air vibrating faintly through their boots. "It's changing shape," Elara whispered. From the valley came a groaning sound, deep and low, like mountains shifting in sleep. Cracks spread through the earth, releasing steam that smelled of metal. Silva's eyes filled with tears. "It's not a lake anymore," she said. "It's awake." The town's alarm bells rang, echoing through empty streets as people fled uphill. Mayor Haldren shouted orders, his voice drowned by the rumble spreading beneath the ground. Windows vibrated, boats splintered, and water surged upward in slow, impossible columns. Elara sprinted to the operations tent, grabbing her field recorder. "It's responding to movement," she said, "like it's learning from us." Silva followed, clutching the edge of the table to keep her balance as the tremor rolled through. "Then stop moving," she said, but it was already too late. A deep hum rolled across the valley, so low it seemed to come from the bones of the earth. Elara pressed her palms over her ears. It wasn't sound, but vibration, thrumming through her chest. The lake swelled again, expanding outward, its edges devouring the first line of trees. Silva fell to her knees. "It's breathing in," she murmured. The reflection of the sky darkened to a deep, endless blue. Clouds twisted overhead, circling the center of the valley. The world seemed to pulse, once, twice, then hold its breath. Mayor Haldren gathered the remaining townsfolk near the church on the hill. "We'll wait it out here," he said, though even he didn't believe it. From their vantage, the entire lake shimmered like liquid light, and the forest edge collapsed inward as if swallowed by mist. Elara adjusted her recorder one last time, her voice steady despite the tremors. "It's symbiotic," she said. "It mimics its surroundings. It's rewriting the valley." Silva touched her arm gently. "Then what happens when it finishes?" The question hung unanswered in the air. The humming deepened until it became silence. Total, absolute silence. The lake stilled, then began to rise. The entire valley glowed as water and earth moved together, slow and unified, like muscle under skin. Elara clutched Silva's hand, tears streaking her face. "It's not trying to destroy," she whispered. "It's remembering." Beneath them, the reflection of the world shifted. Trees, clouds, faces, all dissolving into light. For one breathless moment, the valley and the lake became the same thing. A vast, luminous body, breathing in unison with the sky. The valley trembled like a single vast drumbeat. Elara and Silva ran toward the ridgeline as the lake surged upward, its mirrored surface bending the morning light into warped arcs. The air smelled of ozone and rain. "It's consuming the fault lines," Elara shouted over the rising roar. The ground cracked open behind them, steam venting in bursts. The town below was gone, swallowed not by water, but by reflection. Everything that once stood there now shimmered faintly within the lake's surface, like memory caught in glass. Reaching higher ground, Elara collapsed against a boulder, gasping. The roar below was deafening, a chorus of earth and water moving in unison. "It's not destroying," she said through shallow breaths. "It's changing us." Silva crouched beside her. "Then what are we becoming?" The words lingered, unanswered. The mountain slope beneath them glowed faintly, veins of light pulsing upward toward the summit. Elara pressed her hand to the ground. It was warm. The valley was no longer below them. It was spreading. The two women stumbled through the forest, trees bending under invisible pressure. "The ridgeline will collapse," Elara warned. Silva stopped, turning toward the sound behind them. A rhythmic pounding, like heartbeats through soil. "It's following us," she said. Branches rattled overhead as mist thickened, glowing faintly from within. Then, through the trees, Elara spotted the old observation tower. "We can trigger the seismic charge from there." Silva hesitated. You mean bury it? No, Alara replied, eyes set on the glowing horizon. We put it back to sleep. The tower groaned as they climbed, metal shaking with each rumble. Alara reached the top and set the charge, fingers trembling as she keyed in coordinates. It's drawing power from the valley floor, she said. If we collapse it here, it seals itself again. Silva finished softly. They locked eyes. Beneath them, the lake's light brightened to a near-blinding white. The structure vibrated like a tuning fork. No! Alara shouted, pressing the trigger. For a heartbeat, the entire world held still. Then the light inverted, collapsing inward like a breath released. When the light faded, the valley was silent. The reflection was gone. Only mist remained, curling above shallow pools that steamed and cooled in the dawn air. Alara and Silva stood side by side, trembling. The world felt lighter, as if something vast had exhaled and gone still. It's over, Silva whispered. Alara nodded, though she couldn't shake the feeling that something below still listened. As sunlight broke over the ridge, the first ripples returned. Small, harmless, perfectly circular, too perfect. The air thickened with static as storm clouds gathered above the still valley. Alara and Silva stood at the ridge, watching lightning crawl across the sky in branching veins. It's not gone, Alara murmured. It's adjusting. Thunder rolled, slow, deliberate, echoing from beneath the earth as much as the heavens. The ground vibrated in pulses, matching a rhythm they both now recognized. The lake had gone quiet, but the world around it breathed in unison. Maybe it's waiting, Silva said softly. Or maybe, Alara replied, it's remembering what it used to be. As night fell, the storm intensified. Rain lashed sideways, and the earth shuddered beneath their boots. Alara shielded her recorder beneath her jacket, capturing the deep subsonic hum rising from the ground. It's drawing the storm, she said. It's using it. Bolts of lightning struck the lake's center, each flash refracted into 1,000 threads of blue light. Silva's voice trembled. It's closing itself. They watched as the lightning slowed, the storm folding inward, drawn into the center like breath returning to lungs. The wind ceased all at once. The lightning vanished mid-strike. A column of light rose silently from the center of the lake, twisting upward until it touched the clouds. The air hummed with resonance, deep and low, like a heartbeat echoing through stone. Alara stepped forward, transfixed. Within the light, she saw images, fragments of the valley before the awakening. Children at the docks, fishermen, the reflection of a calm morning, long memories, suspended in brilliance. Then, as suddenly as it began, the light folded back into the water. The light collapsed into the water without a sound. The lake's surface smoothed, glowing briefly before fading to glassy black. The reflection returned. Mountains, clouds, and two women standing motionless at its edge. The wind softened, and the mist thinned into ribbons that drifted across the valley. It's over, Silva whispered. Alara nodded, but her eyes lingered on the perfect reflection below. The ripples were gone. Even the rain had stopped. The lake no longer breathed. Or perhaps it was simply holding its breath. Days later, the valley lay quiet. The emergency crews departed, leaving behind new shallows where the town once stood. Alara remained, sketching readings, though the instruments registered nothing but silence. She glanced at the lake. Its surface was flawless, unbroken, a mirror once more. A breeze touched her face, carrying the faintest vibration, almost too soft to feel. She leaned closer. Beneath the perfect reflection, something vast shifted. A pulse, a breath, a memory. The mirror lake smiled back.